sa kape. Yan! Hello, hello, hello mga kameta. Kamusta kayo dyan? Ayan. Nakikita niyo sa mata natin, medyo power nap tayo ng konti kanina. Grabe, medyo mahaba yung araw. Late tayo natapos kagabi. Maaga tayo nagsimula kanina. Back to back to back. Dami natin dinidrive-drive. Wala naman tayong driver. Diba? Ayan, medyo napagod tayo. Sabi ko power nap ng konti. Ayan, paggising na, nako po, behind schedule na tayo, hindi natin nasimulan ng sa tamang oras. You know, we're expecting sana magsimula tayo mga 7, mga ganyan, as usual. So, thank you very much mga kameta, at least yung mga nandyan pa. Before, of course, we start with our meta today, let me also thanks yung mag-thank you tayo dun sa mga kaibigan natin, no? For the very kind reception and invitation kanina mga friends natin sa JP Morgan. Yan, thank you very much for your kind invitation, especially kay Ma'am Cecilia, Chinky, Nadine, etc. They were very kind kanina, and we had very extensive discussions. Obviously, you know, the content of discussions, this is ibang usapan yan. Anyway, thank you very much for this invitation. I always appreciate talking to people who are in the business sector, finance sector, because they're very realistic, they have very pragmatic views about things. And it's also very important to have this back and forth discussions with them, because it helps them also understand what are the things that the country needs and what are the things that we have to advocate for in terms of creating a better is investment condition for the country. So anyway, ang bongga ng building, ganda-ganda ng JP Morgan building. Taray, taray. No, I'm also glad because generally mukhang mga kameta, what's happening right now, it looks like the Philippines is really emerging as a kind of a global back office superpower. So a lot of big companies, including mga big tech companies, they're doing their coding, they're doing their back office work dito sa Pilipinas. And I'm hoping down the road, pagdating sa IT sectors, we can be even more competitive and hopefully overcome our main rival pagdating sa ganitong industriya, which is India. No? Of course, malakas ang India dun sa business process outsourcing. But dun sa IT especially, very malakas sila. But we're hoping that more Philippines, we'll see more Philippines pagdating dito sa increasingly high-end services sector, and hopefully we go beyond also back office. We can do more of the complex works, etc. for these global companies, because mga kameta, maganda yan dahil magkakaroon ng oportunidad ng yung ating mga kababayan, especially mga young economies, young accountants. Hindi na sila kailangan pumunta pa sa ibang bansa. Dito pa lang sa Pilipinas, makahanap sila ng mga gandang trabaho. No? So, a part of me always is glad to see growth and to see expansion and to see more and more international companies setting up in the Philippines. Alright? Thank you very much for that again sa mga kaibigan natin sa JP Morgan. Now, today guys, actually, there are two important topics na pwede natin pag-usapan, pero of course, for the interest of time and medyo gabi na, habol pa tayo sa ibang trabaho natin, siguro I'll just prioritize one of them, and then we can continue the other one tomorrow. At of course, ito po yung unang-una sa isang banda, meron tayong updates dito sa ICC issue, because ang ating Pangulo, si Pangulong Marcos Jr. po ay he already made a very strong stance dito sa International Criminal Court, and he has already signaled disengagement from the International Criminal Court. And that has, of course, a lot of implications. It tells us a lot about also the potential direction of this administration. The other one is, of course, kanina nakita natin mga kameta. Oh, by the way, shoutout dyan sa pinsan natin. Pow! My man, John Jones. No, I mean, the other thing is, hindi ngayon lang ako mag-shoutout. Huwag na kayo magpa-shoutout masyado ha. Pag nag-discuss tayo, mamaya na lang pagkatapos na. Baka magtampo lang yung iba dyan. No, but the other one mga kameta is kanina may nag-forward naman ng email sa atin. Si Jairus Bundok, diba? Jairus strikes again, no? Meron itong bagong article si Jairus Bundok ukol dito sa election 2022 and alleged anomalies with the results of the elections. I think as far as the prominent columnists are concerned, parang si Jairus Bundok lang kilala ko is really, really on top of this and constantly updating us. So ito po yung article. I'm thinking perhaps we can discuss this even further tomorrow. I'm waiting for more reactions. Kasi ayoko, you know, I'm kind of person who doesn't want to build the whole case or prosecute the whole argument based on just a single source or based on just a single material or a single person. I want to look at it from different angles, mga kameta, no? So, I'm hoping to see more reaction from including for the opposition. I don't know, mga supporters si Lenny. I want to see more reaction from them. I want to see also more reaction from the part of the government, from COMELEC. Also, of course, we're trying to update when it comes to Supreme Court kasi yung decision, remember, dun sa log transmissions, the Supreme Court already was calling upon the COMELEC to be forthcoming with some of the information that was being requested. So hopefully we get also some updates on that, and then siguro pwede tayong mag-usap ng masinsinan ukol dito sa issue ng election 2022 and the you know, how credible or not credible the result of the elections were. Ako, as always, I say, obviously, there's a lot of problem with upstream palang when it comes to vote buying. That's a major problem. It casts out on the integrity of our elections in ways that is not perhaps appreciated. And at the same time, dun sa issue ng transmission log, I mean, what is the implication here? Yung mga nag-allege na the elections was perhaps set up, etc. Yung, again, allegations to are you saying that the 15 versus 13 million, so you're looking at almost 16 million difference, like all of that is imaginary? Are we looking at the differential of 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 10 million, etc.? So, pag-usapan natin yan. And then again, of course, mga kameta, gusto kong balikan tong issue na to because remember, the other day, we made a passionate plea, not a passionate plea, but actually we kind of called upon kind of a clarion call. Oh, diba, taray? We made a clarion call for more reflection by on the part of the opposition, like proper reflection, hindi lang yung sige, labanan natin ang disinformation. Oh, given na yan. Talagang kailangan natin labanan disinformation. Dapat noon pa lang nilabanan natin disinformation. Dapat noon pa lang aggressive na yung stance ni Lenny, opposition, etc. against disinformation and all of the nonsense that was being spread against her, no? Given na yan. Uh, But what we want to see, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin nandun sa isang meta natin, vlog natin mga kameta, is we want to see much more in-depth reflection on the campaign strategy. Saan sila nagkamali? Saan pwede mag-improve? Saan ang mga adjustments na kailangan? You know, yung post-mortem na sinasabi natin, na wala pa rin, no? Of course, sinasabi ng iba, wala sa ating kultura, ng ganito mga post-mortem, etc. But there's always a first for something, especially for something good, right? Siguro naman gusto natin mag-modernize. Siguro gusto naman natin mag-level up, di ba? Especially for the opposition which has suffered at least two, but arguably actually three major setbacks back to back to back in the last 6 years or so, in terms of the last 7 years or so, in terms of competitive national elections are concerned, no? So, one worry I have is by focusing on this issue of COMELEC transmission logs, by this issue of potential irregularities dun sa transmission, etc., we might divert attention from more important things, including the vote buying problem at the upstream, including also the need for the opposition to properly assess how effective their campaign was. Now, we're hoping to get later this week one of the campaign insiders to discuss further this issue. Again, we're here, mga kameta, to be very constructive. We're here to talk about future. Here to talk about a stronger opposition because you need a stronger opposition to create a balance in terms of your government, to create a functional democracy. Because without real opposition, then it's hard to talk about a real government, real democracy, no? For that matter. So, again, the purpose of this discussion is extremely constructive, mga kameta. Andito lang po tayo para pag-usapan what is the path forward. What is the blueprint for the Philippines to come back better, stronger when it comes to its democratic march, especially for the liberal opposition. We also have to talk about where it went wrong in terms of having common candidate and united slate. I'll talk more about Turkey, talk more about Czech Republic, etc. Some of the other more successful cases of the opposition coming together from different stripes and actually defeating the government, or at least managing to capture some of the top government offices. So, mas pag-usapan natin tomorrow, and I'm just waiting for more updates dito sa issue ng transmission logs at saka yung mga accusations by some former top officials and tech experts regarding, no, including two former members of the Philippine Armed Forces, regarding dun sa integrity of not only the elections in general but more particularly in terms of the transmission of the election results ng 2022. Again, alam ko juicy yan sa mga, especially mga ibang kameta natin dyan na ayaw tanggapin yung result ng last year, and they want to see also more transparency on this front, and they have a lot of skepticism and suspicion about what happened last year. Of course, in some ways, this is also a way of comeuppance, or trying to come up with a comeuppance for for someone who back in 2016 was also attacking the integrity of elections, an election that actually made Lenny win. Remember, Lenny Robredo had to deal with how many years? 5, 6 years of litigation, of mudslinging, all sorts of propaganda, because yung isang losing part dun sa vice presidential race in 2016 was not accepting of it. So siguro yung iba sinasabi nila is payback time. I don't know. Um, Anyway, balikan natin itong issue na ito mga kameta. So this is kanina lang. Yeah, today lang lumabas ito. But I'm still waiting for more discussions from different angles, from different columnists, from different experts para pwede natin pag-usapan ng mabuti. Kasi I'm not here to just discuss one column or one columnist or one person or one source. Okay, having said that mga kameta, there was also another major development this week. This has to do with yung International Criminal Court. Of course, last week pinag-usapan natin itong International Criminal Court extensively. Masinsinan po yung ating pagsusuri sa itong issue na ito, at kausap po natin si Attorney Carranza, Professor Carranza, joining us from New York, about the issue of International Criminal Court and what he feels when it comes to implications of the Putin case for the Duterte case. Now, as you can see mga kameta, actually in a way our prognostications kind of were, you know, we're kind of crystallizing into some serious developments. No, so not long after the Putin case came out, no, at the ICC, what we have here, mga kameta, is a situation whereby the ICC also very expressly rejected yung jurisdictional and other related arguments by the government. And remember, sinabi ni Attorney Carranza, who's an top level legal expert, na medyo katawa-tawa or medyo laughable yung premise ng argument ng Philippine government in terms of trying to get away with the jurisdiction issue, etc. No, and also to argue that they're already doing their part. Well, if you're talking about tens of thousands of EJK cases and then to cite 3, 4, 5, 12, 30 cases, there's a serious commensurability problem. Not to mention we're talking about how many years now since these investigations, or how many years now since ICC was called upon by Filipino citizens and a number of people and human rights experts to actually investigate the matter. So after 5 years, what are we talking about? 20 cases, 30 cases out of what? 20,000, 30,000 alleged cases. So anyway, so the Philippine government right now actually has pushed back aggressively against ICC. Now this is the other side of the coin, mga kameta, that many people were worried about, which is, as you can see clearly, Putin, as expected, dead ma lang siya sa ICC. And of course, with Xi Jinping visiting Russia, and Xi Jinping telling Putin before leaving Russia na, together we're part of a century, once in a century kind of change in the global order, etc. So mukhang very encouraged atong si Putin dun sa seeming support coming from China, which is supposed to be a more neutral party, but actually it's not that neutral. So my sense is, by taking on Putin, actually the ICC also exposed itself, because you're taking on a big giant, right? Giant na nga, big pa, diba? No? Which is Russia, no? And obviously, there's no chance that Putin will be apprehended anytime soon by ICC. But as I said, there are still costs, because it makes him more of a pariah. It makes him, more and more isolated, and in that sense, more dependent on China and a few other countries, no? Which in a way undermines the very basis of power for Russia. And not to mention, Finland right now actually joined NATO. So NATO actually is expanding. There's an additional, 1,300 kilometers of border between NATO and Putin right now, which just tells you what a disaster the Putin strategy has been as far as dealing with the so-called NATO threat is concerned. Now, going back to the Philippines, of course, related lahat ng mga yan, mga kameta. You cannot isolate the issue of ICC with the Philippines from ICC with Russia, especially if, the Philippines is watching carefully how is ICC gonna approach these very complicated, high-profile cases, mga kameta. Now, I don't know whether the calculation of the Philippine government is that they're anticipating a kind of warrant of arrest against Duterte, etc., or some of the top officials under the previous administration. But clearly, the strategy right now is to dig it in, right? Dig it in. After trying a number of what many independent experts will say, coming up with quite flimsy arguments, now they're essentially going for a more hardline approach, no? So if you look at the title of Reuters coverage of what happens, it's actually not very encouraging. It doesn't really reflect well on the Philippines. If President Marcos Jr. was interested in rebranding and reintroducing the Philippines, this doesn't really come off as a very encouraging headline. And in many ways, it actually reinforces critics who are arguing that, oh, Marcos Jr., he may seem chummy and nice and all of that, but, he's just another Duterte and all of that, right? So, yan, tignan natin mga kameta. Alright? 1 second. Oops. 1 second mga kameta. One second lang, parang na-disconnect tayo dito. Ano ba nangyari dito? Mhm. So sensitive yung discussion natin, biglang nakat na naman tayo. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, balikan natin yan. So, katulad ng sinabi natin, we need to get back dito sa discussion ng not only about results of the 2022 elections, but we also have to talk about the latest developments pagdating sa ICC. So, the other day lang, mga kameta, essentially nag-declare ng Pilipinas ng we don't want to do anything with the ICC. So, medyo nag-adopt tayo ng more hard line after some would say dribbling the ICC by coming up with various kinds of arguments, which many experts would say quite flimsy arguments on the jurisdiction issue, etc. Mukhang ito medyo nag-hardline na yung government natin, and we're essentially saying na ayaw na natin makipag-cooperate sa ICC. So this is quite a big thing. Because it kind of complicates yung narrative ni President Marcos Jr. that he wants to reintroduce the Philippines. He essentially wants to rebrand the Philippines after all of the mistakes and really horrible the headlines that was coming out from the Philippines under the former president because of the bada approach to the war on drugs. So ito mga kameta, no? So Philippine President Marcos Jr. kahapon said he would cut off contact with the International Criminal Court after na-reject na po yung request ng Philippine government to stop the investigations and give essentially local institutions, meaning Department of Justice, etc., more time to get to the bottom of the issue, right? Thousands of Filipinos, mainly low-level dealers and users, were killed by police during Rodrigo Duterte's free travel. I'm reading from the Reuters on illicit drugs, with many more gunned down in mysterious circumstances. Ito yung sinasabi po ng Reuters, no? I'm just reading it. So, ang ginagawa po ng ICC is investigating widespread allegations by human rights groups that victims of systematic executions and cover-ups supposedly by state institutions, no? Ito po yung sinabi ng ating Pangulo, no? Sabi ni Marcos Jr., that ends all our involvement with the ICC. At this point, we essentially are disengaging from any contact, any communication with the International Criminal Court. Ayon kay President Marcos, we cannot cooperate with the ICC considering the very serious questions about their jurisdiction and about what we consider to be interference and practically attacks on the sovereignty of the Republic. So ito na, medyo nag-hardline na si President, no? As I said, mga kameta, we were watching very carefully what was happening with Putin because now the ICC has a big case on its lap, no? And good luck, going after Putin. But as I said, of course, there's strategic costs because it makes Putin more isolated, it makes Putin weaker, it makes Putin more dependent, mga kameta, sa China and a number of other countries, and more difficult for Putin, of course, to be able to maneuver, no, internationally, now that he has this kind of a tag of war criminal or international criminal to him, no. Although warrant of arrest lang naman, wala naman final conviction of Putin. Let's be very clear about that, and let's see what's the ICC gonna do with in the case of Putin in terms of whether they're gonna move forward, mga kameta, with actual trial, and whether he's going to be held guilty, etc., and what's going to happen later on. Of course, Putin now is super powerful, in charge of Russia, but Russia is Russia. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years from now, mga kameta. So, tingnan natin yan. Alright? Now, going back to this, mga kameta. So, now, obviously, the Philippine government is perhaps looking at, well, Putin so far is just tinidedma lang niya yung ICC, so this ICC wants to play some symbolic game. Go ahead. We're not going to cooperate with you. Now, the ICC, not long after the Putin case, so that was a very fast-paced kind of approach to the Ukraine issue because of the gravity of the situation, of course, and the proximity of the situation. Of course, Ukraine is not too far from The Hague, where the ICC is positioned. Now we see that the ICC also took quite a categorical position in rejecting the Philippines' argument on the jurisdiction issue, which is, hindi nyo pwede sabihin na wag na kami makialam, wala naman kayo ipakita na may ginagawa naman talaga kayo dito. Kung ang allegations dito ay libo-libo ang naging biktima ng EJK, bakit mga ilan-ilan lang yung mga kaso na investigate nyo? That doesn't reflect willingness to deal with the issue seriously. So siguro parang ganun yung argument ng ICC, no?
Again, please refer to sa interview natin with Attorney Carranza to more appreciate the nuances of this case, among other, of course, reputable independent experts. No, now ang ICC kasi is supposed to be a court of last resort that can exercise jurisdictions if states are unable or unwilling to investigate crimes. On the question of unable, well, the Philippines is still a relatively functioning state. No, it's not like we don't have enough personnel to investigate the matter. So, siguro ang sinasabi ng ICC dito, mukhang unwilling yata kayo. No? Just to give you a background, the Philippines, of course, nag-withdraw tayo sa ICC noong 2018. We were a member of ICC from 2011 all the way to 2018. But the argument of ICC was mass atrocities will be covered not only during the time that the Philippines was a member of ICC, but also beyond that. In fact, as I said, if you look at the case of Russia, Russia was never ratified the ICC, and in fact, even withdrew its signatory position from the ICC in 2016, and yet may warrant of arrest tayo against Putin. So we see a hardening of lines by both sides, mga kameta. So the ICC is saying, no, we have to come in. You guys are not doing your job. The Philippine government is saying, no, you're not going to come in. This is a violation of our sovereignty. And guess what? We don't want to cooperate with you anymore. So my point is that's going to have major implications. On one hand, of course, this kind of helps the MARCOS Duterte alliance because, in a way, this is a major sticking point as far as Philippine politics and transition to a new administration is concerned. And if Marcos is going to stand strong with former President Duterte, then of course that has domestic political implications. It also makes it more difficult for Marcos to kind of project a more reformist, a more liberal, a more, not liberal party, but liberal in the sense of more human rights oriented, more rule of law oriented kind of image internationally. And this potentially could create some complications in terms of our relations with traditional allies, not now, but down the road, of course, as the dust settles over EDCA and other major developments that is happening between us and our traditional allies when it comes to geopolitical issues in the region. All right. Now, obviously, may mga critics dito, may mga hindi natuwa talaga dito, including, well, the de facto minority leader, or the super minority in opposition sa Senate, Riza Ontiveros. She has raised some serious concerns about the implication of this, that the Philippines, by further disengaging from ICC, is going to put us in a very tricky situation. It's going to make us look more like a uh, problematic democracy rather than a robust democracy, rather than improving democracy. Basahin natin ng sandali lang yung kay Riza Ontiveros because after all, she's supposed to be the de facto leader of the opposition. No? She's the only real opposition candidate who made it to a national position as far as we know. And there was a kind of a passing of baton from Lane to really come of age in terms of being the face of the opposition and potentially the candidate of the opposition in the next presidential cycle. No, anyway, sabi ni Senator Rizon Tiveres kanina na yung move ni President Marcos Jr. to disengage from the International Criminal Court is a major mistake. Ayon sa kanya, his decision to disengage from the ICC is a mistake and will only isolate the Philippines at a time when countries have been trying to forge alliances. It is still in the best interest of our countrymen and women, lalong-lalo na ang madlang Pilipino, na bumalik tayo sa Rome Statute. No? Ito yung treaty na sinasign ng mga members ng ICC. Madlang Pilipino. Does this mean the average? Okay. The, the government had earlier, of course, requested the ICC to suspend yung investigation niya based on yung argument ng complementarity, etc. But, of course, na-reject yan. Now, ayon kay Riza Ontiveros, where's the integrity of the president's word? Did the president not fly around the world, even to the United Nations, to call for unity and cooperation in the international community? Did he not promise commitment to human rights and justice? If he acts on his decision to disengage from the International Criminal Court, he will embarrass the Philippines on the international stage. The administration does not seem interested in serving justice for the victims of drug war as it is invested in pulling away from the ICC. Now, she did not clarify why they're invested. This is the Duterte Alliance angle, etc. Ayon kay Rizon Tiveros, will the president yet again, as I did with the many martial law victim survivors, leave the families of the victims empty-handed? Only 3 cases of at least 6,000 drug-related killings in the past 7 years have been resolved. So, sorry, 3 cases lang pala. 3 cases out of the 6,000 na na-admit ng government, but some of the numbers go up to 30,000 or 25,000 or so. So ayon sa kanila, they say our justice system is capable, but they have not exerted any aggressive effort to prove so. So again, if we're saying we're doing something about it, how come 3 lang out of so many thousands of cases? If you're saying that, you know, functional ang domestic courts, so there's no need for international intervention, then why so many few cases, right? So yun yung line of attack. The administration is willing to settle for a slow-paced rate that will take several lifetimes to tackle all of this. It is an impossible task, sabi niya. The president seems to be protecting an ally when he should be protecting the Filipino people. I think this was the more feisty part of her statements. Let's see what will come out further from the Philippine government and whether ICC will push ahead with also further investigation and potentially starting a trial, both against Putin and also against former Duterte administration officials. Let's see what's going to happen there. Now, of course, Riza Ontiveros has a stake in this because if you remember, when it came to the Kian de los Santos case, she was very much at the forefront of making sure there'll be a proper investigation of the Kian de los Santos case. And in the case of Kian, which was a very much resonant case because it was really horrible, it was really heartbreaking for countless Filipinos, and dahil kitang-kita talaga na walang nangyaring nanlaban, na talaga this was an execution style situation. On that, we saw some sort of resolution, some sort of justice, some sort of conviction of the perpetrators. So what Riza is saying, hopefully we will be able to replicate that on a much larger scale kung saan makover ang thousands of allegations of EJK, not just 2, 3, 12, whatsoever. No? So because yun pa rin hindi masasagot ng government eh. If there are thousands of cases and if the Philippine court systems and judicial system is effective, bakit tatlo lang so far na resolve? After how many years na itong push to have ICC come in and investigate? So, let's see what's gonna happen here because both sides seem to be hardening their position. And then, of course, you have the Putin angle. Let's see if the trial will move ahead with Putin case and also with the Philippines in the coming years or so. And again, this is going to create a lot of complication, especially if Marcos Jr. wants to present himself as kind of a reformer and wants to effectively rebrand the Philippines. So maybe expect some statements from the US, etc. in the coming months. Although ngayon medyo tahimik ang US dahil yung EDCA medyo in the air pa rin. So as I said, Philippines, maraming plot twists dito. But clearly, as far as President Marcos is concerned, obviously, he's making a stance that is very clearly more resonant of the position of the previous administration than something quite different. Alright? So tomorrow, try natin balikan mga kameta itong issue ng election 2022 and allegations with, irregularities supposedly with the transmission logs and all. Balikan natin yan. Also the implications of these allegations. And what are the things that the opposition should do. But in the meantime, let me say thank you very much sa lahat ng mga nakinig sa atin dito. Alam ko, gabi na, it's 9:30 almost. At balikan natin yung mga trabaho natin and all. Alright? Thank you very much. I appreciate dun sa lahat ng mga comments, suggestions. Thank you very much. Dito, ayan, ang dami pala na-comment dito sa YouTube na I appreciate it. Dito rin sa Facebook, maraming salamat. Na-cut tayo kanina bigla. And I don't know what's going on again. Baka it's a connection problem, I suppose, no? Let me say also thank you sa lahat ng mga nagko-comment, kay Jill Lorio, kay Riz Lace, kay Violi Reyes, ayan. Kay Violi Reyes, sabi niya, the problem is 6,000 plus na yung EJK, pero dalawa lang nagawa. Talo actually, sabi ni Rizay. Yung isa pa dahil may video, okay, I think this is the case of Kian de los Santos. So, many of our comment are raising, doubts on the integrity of the investigations locally. Therefore, they see some point for international intervention. If this admin try away from ICC, good luck sa Philippines about it. Sabi ni Edward, sabi ni Alexander C. Ano to? Si Lenny. Okay, kay Lenny pala yung comment dito. Alright. Ayan, kay Tessie Go. Ayan, and maraming iba pa yung sumasali lahat nandito. Maraming salamat again. I appreciate it. Very kind of you for joining us. I'll try to get back to you with the comment sections later on. Medyo hindi ko nakita dito. Alright, thank you guys and talk to you soon. Balikan natin ito yung issue ng transmission logs and election 2020 again. Alright, God bless and talk to you soon.